Okay, I'm going to be brief because I know the guy standing behind me will actually slap me and move me off the stage. But he is no stranger to this group. Major General Doug Gabram is the commanding general, as I said, of the U.S. Army Aviation Missile and Life Cycle Management Command, AMCOM. And he's here and going to give us an update today on organization's real-time integrated logistics support to the soldiers in training and combat. And I'd ask you to please join in a warm welcome for Major General Doug Gabram.
Hey, how's everybody doing? Good morning. You got me in the back? I am green. There you go. Okay. Listen.
He's got a laser on there and everything, man.
Okay. All right. Well, I brought my own alpha model, so I'm just going to go with the low ball shot here. So first, I just want to apologize for being late. We had several delays coming out of Mesa. There's a team of folks, of Boeing folks that were with me on the plane, and Renee got stuck. I don't even know where she got stuck. Bags went one place, and I think she drove from Houston here. So planes, trains, and automobiles. So I apologize. Really, what I'd like to briefly talk to you about today, I think I have 30 minutes, and lunch is after me, right, Steve? Okay, all right, whoa. Okay. I have the same slides, you're good, sir. Yeah, these aren't mine. But so if we could find mine, if not, that's okay too. But first, seriously, I want to thank Quad A, as always, Steve, Bill, and the whole team for putting on another professional event, as the calendar year is full of excitement, and we got a lot of things going on, so thanks for what you do, Steve. And then I just want to say, I don't know if, I just walked in really, so I don't know what happened yesterday or this morning, only by phone call, but I want to thank the CCAT team, and specifically Colonel Alan Setta and his Sergeant Major and the whole team for their leadership during Harvey. Okay, I got here about a week after it happened to visit and see some of the effects, and we were really lucky. Everybody knows that. I mean, we were about, 80 miles to the south. We didn't take a direct impact. If we did, things might have been different. We might not have been sitting here, quite frankly. But we started out with over probably 40 displaced families. I may have my numbers a little bit wrong. We're down to 17 right now. And in our vision statement, it's mission first, people always. And in an event like this, and Irma, of course, and now the tragedy in Vegas, it's always people first. And the team came together in a brilliant fashion, and we took care of people. We had Amerdeck folks here, Sikorsky folks, Boeing, as everybody knows, many folks in the audience. So I just want to thank Al for his leadership and for the whole team here for coming together, and it's pretty amazing, so thanks. So today, I just honestly want to kind of give you an update on a few things. Quite frankly, I want to be candid with you. We're moving forward in a way that may not be status quo, and I want to kind of explain a little bit behind the scenes. And I know there's some talk about 100% supply availability, but so I want to give you my perception of that. So if you go to the first slide, okay. So here we are in this type of environment, and why does the general show this slide? I just want to take a step back a little bit, because if you look at the title of the slide, why Army Aviation? Why Army Aviation? This purpose right here. It's all about, and you know this, but I'm very passionate about this, and I know the team is here and the whole branch. It's for the soldier and the commanders on the ground. That's what we're here for. 100% supply availability, blah, 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 FMC rate, NMC, NMCS, all the metrics we track are really interesting and they're important. However, if we don't have the support, we don't have our aircraft ready to fight for the soldier on the ground, and especially where we are today, then we're nothing. Because we only exist to support them. And it's all about that sacred bond, and if you recognize that guy, General Sherman, that's what he said in a letter to General Grant. And that's what the ground soldiers and commanders, that's how they depend upon us, and that's how we see them. So we can never lose that. So you mentioned tip of the spear. Tip of the spear is about perspective on where you're at. But what we do here, what you all do for our branch is extremely important, and it all comes down to this right here. So as we take a step back, if we look at where we're at today, this question is always asked. And for many of the folks in the room, I know most of you are under the age of 21, but we've all had experiences in our military career and civilian career, and we've all kind of see things in cycles and patterns, and I call it the EKG of life. But this question right here is rather relevant today. Our priorities right now, General Perna's priorities are Korea, the current fight, CENTCOM, FORCECOM, getting ready, and then Europe. And in behind that is supply availability and performance to promise for what we do. That's it. So if you look at the news, and some of you have heard me say this before, you can kind of make your own opinion on where we're at, what we're doing, but I can tell you, folks, that we are moving in a direction to get ready. All right, and I hope that nothing happens in the diplomatic and political, it all works out, and everybody, we move out. But we are very concerned about what we see on the peninsula and the way things are going right now. So it's going to take not only the folks on the peninsula, which, completely unclassified, everybody knows how many helicopters we have there, right? That's not enough. It's going to take 50 or 60%, depending on how you flip the coin, of our Army to win this fight. And our Army is not on the peninsula. Our Army is back here or somewhere else, so we got to get there. And then we got to have the right parts. We got to have the right equipment on station. So we can talk about it, and we can admire a lot of problems, which we have been doing collectively as a team. But I think it's a reality check time, and we need to understand where we're at. So we're going. Are you ready to fight tonight? These kids are going with what they have. In an Apache platoon, it's 4 helicopters. So those 4 helicopters, pick an MDS, it doesn't matter. Those kids are going to take off when the bullets start flying. And if one breaks or if we don't have a part, et cetera, they're going to go with 3. And then they're going to go with 2 to accomplish the same mission. Not 1, most likely, because you never leave your battle, you never leave your wingman. But do you see what I mean? So it is critical that we give the best chance that we can give our kids on the battlefield. And that's kind of what we're doing here, and it's what we're doing in the sustainment world. So we're ready to fight tonight. I just visited a pre-command course down at Rucker, future battalion and brigade commanders, command sergeants major, W5s, and a few SCS civilians. And we had this discussion, and there's a lot of talk about we don't have this, we don't have that, and I understand, but you are going to go with what you have on. You travel, I'm here. It's what I had on yesterday and the day before. Fight tonight. This is what you got. So I just, as we reflect and as we talk to each other and build relationships and work problems, because we do have some wicked problems out there, we just keep this in mind. And I know you all do, but I'm just trying to relate the sense of urgency right now, because I personally, in my 33 years, have never. Now we've gone up and down with Korea, but I'll just leave it at that. If you look at all the dynamics. And all it takes is a miscalculation. So we're concerned. Okay, next slide. So here you're thinking, the general's got to show colors and arrows and such. But this is, I'll be on this not for a long time, but our campaign plan. And a campaign plan, as most of you know, can be a coffee desk ornament, or you can actually try to implement it. General Perna has a campaign plan. Obviously, we do. We've changed our battle rhythm around. We've changed what our objectives, all our goals, all our meetings, output is linked to a certain battle rhythm, and it starts with these 4 lines of effort. So these are the CSA and General Perna's priorities, and if you understand campaign plans, you kind of want to be nested. These are strategic objectives. These are our lines of effort. And obviously, as you would guess, for AMCOM, sustainable material readiness is our number 1 main effort or line of effort, LOE. Under that, which we're going to talk to here in a second a little bit, we want to optimize our supply chain, and we want to optimize depot performance. And I got to tell you, if you haven't picked up the copy of the Quad A magazine there, the Blue Book, on page 34, there's an article authored by Colonel Lancetta that kind of lays out the strategy of where we want to go with the depot in terms of art of the probable. It used to be possible, but that's an Air Force term. Any Air Force folks here? I love y'all, but we're going to go with probable because probable is more, it's just more aggressive than possible. So we have a goal of we need to get our Blackhawks out in 275 days. And I'll come back to that in a second. So this is our number one LOE. I'm not going to go into details. There's about 6 strategic objectives underneath each one of those. Future Army is very important, obviously. The human dimension, because it's all about people. Mission first, people always. And then the money line, resource management, which is extremely important in our line of business and any line of business. So I just wanted to show you that in terms of the bigger picture and where we're going to go here, and I'll break this down, I think, on the next slide. If you go to the next one. Okay, roger that. So optimize the supply chain. This is in English, in operators' English. That's kind of the way we see it. Ensure the ability to have the right part available at the right time, if that makes sense. And it kind of makes sense to me. And then optimize the depots, and you can read that. So some of our metrics that we're striving towards, and I know you don't debate me on 100%. It's a stretch goal, and I got it. And you're going to ask me about money, and I'll kind of come back to that in a sec. But that's where we need to go. If you don't have a goal, if you never think you're going to get in the red zone, then you're going to kick field goals the rest of your life. So that's where we're going. That's what we've been instructed to do. And there's a lot of reasons as I dissect 100% supply availability. We got 2 great initiatives going. We just had our first meeting with 2 major OEMs, Boeing and Sikorsky, where we all sit down. And some of you were in that first meeting. We're not quite there yet, but it's a good start where we talk about supply availability, where we're at, and we have contracting in the room because contracting timelines, et cetera, is a big part of that. And we're rolling our sleeves up and we're getting after each part we have a problem with. So that's a little bit about supply availability. 0 back orders. Just by inducing some engaged leadership, we've reduced our back orders to about total for aviation, I want to say 4,000 plus or minus. That's about where we're at. It may be a little bit high. We were at about 8,000 4 or 5 months ago. And we're talking with Forces Command about looking hard at why do we have that back order? It's over a year old. What's going on? And I know it's tied to money because money has been spent. But the key is, the goodness is, we have 2 major ACOMs talking about back orders because back orders is tied to this metric right here. 100% performance to promise. This is something we started out in was December of 16. We were about 35% across the board with both depots. Today we're about 75%. We took a little bit of hit with Harvey, about a 9% hit, but we're dissecting that. We're understanding the problem a little bit better, and we're moving out there. Increased revenue and carryover, always a point of discussion in Army Material Command and carryover. There's good carryover and bad carryover, like there's good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. The key is educating the right people up in the building what good and bad means because we lose a lot of depot maintenance money each year. So we're certainly on better ground than we were. Last year we have not by any means won that fight, but we're trying. So I don't want to push down because I think you may hear a little bit of this in some following briefs today, but these are some of the key metrics that we're pushing towards with CCAD. Next slide. So these documents, I don't know if you can see it in the back, but I just want a big picture tell you why these are important. And this one here is the Army Aviation Enterprise Sustainment Strategy. We kind of didn't have one before. And this is at the strategic level, but what I want to point to, you really can't see it, but there's 3 signatures here. And when we talk about the 6-pack and when you talk about the power of the aviation enterprise, it's just not Gabram's signature on there. There's Gaylor and there's Thomas Todd. So all 3 of us staffed this, looked at it, because if the branch isn't behind it, I have learned that things don't go very far. So the sustainment strategy, This is the Holistic Aviation Assessment Task Force report. General Mangum, many of you heard that report. 63 really good recommendations, and we're working those down as a branch. There was a DAX org cut by the Army actually telling us to do it, which has kind of never been done before. So there's 63 recommendations, and they span from all of the ACOMs. Everybody's got, AMCOM, we have about 5 specified tasks that we're knocking down to include conditions-based reset and conditions-based maintenance, which I'll talk to briefly. So speaking of, this right here is still a draft, but we're very confident we're going to get signature from all 3, the 6-pack, to move forward with our CBM, Conditions-Based Maintenance Plus strategy. The CBM, as many of you have been involved in, we did a lot of great things over the past 12 to 15 years. We put a lot of digital collectors on our aircraft. Matter of fact, 90% of our aircraft have things on them which tell us things, but the problem is the things aren't synchronized. The goodness is the Army wants to go to a CBM strategy. So they're looking at Army Aviation saying, hey, you guys are out in front, but we have our issues, more out in front than we are. Help us through this. So the G4 of the Army and the AMC commander have talked, and they're going to come up with a Army CBM strategy. I got a few folks that were helping them behind the curtain. We got a lot of work to do ourselves in CBM as we look to synchronize that effort more at the strategic level. For example, FVL. What do we want? How do we want CBM to play in that? Rather large, right? So we're working that hard. All these 3 key documents collated in these 5 strategy objectives. So everything we look at, number 1, expeditionary aviation force. We have to be more expeditionary, and there's a debate on what expeditionary means, quite frankly. We want to reduce soldier burden. We want to improve our operational availability, right? We want to improve our MC and our FMC rates. We want to reduce our footprint because we want to be more expeditionary. We think we got to go deeper, farther, and we want to decrease life cycle costs. As many of you know, a weapon system over the life of that, 70% of the cost is sustainment costs. So these are the 5 objectives that we stay pinned to, that we always come back to. I always say, come back to the Alamo. What's really important? If it's not doing one of these 5 things, then we got to take a hard look at it. So I wanted to share that with you, kind of bigger picture of what we're doing in a sustainment world with the branch, with the Army, and I think it's important, and it comes back. It always comes back. There's always a dotted line back to CCAD. So next slide, and I think that's it. I'll take any questions now, or I can talk on a few other topics that I had as a backup if you want, but I figured there'd be some questions. I'm going to get off this stage because these lights are killing me.
Questions? Here we go. Got one over here.
Hey, sir.
Hello.
Hello, sir. Jim Olofsson with BAE Systems. My question is related to contract maintenance support as it relates to your sustainment objectives.
Great question. So one of the holistic, I'm going to call it the Mangum study because most of you know General Mangum, and it's I think you can relate, was how do we standardize LRC alphas? How do we standardize green suitor and blue suitor maintenance? Or do we need to? What's the break? One could argue, I believe personally, that I believe we relied too much on contractors in the field over the past 10 to 15 years for a lot of good reasons, right? But now I think the Sergeant Major and we have a few initiatives coming on that we got to snap the chalk line and say, hey, wait a minute. Our younger NCOs, troubleshooting skills, you could say, are not what they need to be. Our phased maintenance, we blue suit a lot of phases, and I own these people, so I got to check the underneath of my car all the time. So where's the middle ground, right? We have over 400 contractors in Afghanistan. We made a decision in Afghanistan, for example. We made the best decision we knew based on numbers that we were given. We can only have so many soldiers in theater. So what do you want those soldiers to look like and be? Okay, so you be shooters or maintainers. So we contracted maintainers rather heavily, right? So you all read the papers. Maybe we're upping our numbers a little bit. Things may change, okay? So where's the sweet spot? What should it be? We made a recommendation by the HADF and that we're pursuing is we have a standardized maintenance contractors per cab. And we think the number, you don't tweet this, how you can do what you want, is around 34, 35. And we have a task and purpose for each one of those contractors, but those contractors are for pass-back maintenance, not doing the maintenance for the soldiers. And what's important is now we have audible, we can track in terms of audit readiness. So we're proposing this to FORCECOM, and we got, we had brigade commanders, we got to get off the crack, we got to kind of pull them back too and say, hey, look, you can't because, Specialist Gabram's up in the, you got him on some other job, and so the contractor will just do it. He'll do the daily on the aircraft today. That's not what we want, right? We want, I believe we want the contractors to augment, not substitute, use them for pass-back. So we're proposing this to FORCECOM. We'll see how it goes. Some folks think 35 is the wrong number. Maybe it's 25. I don't know. I don't really care. I just want the principle applied. So we're looking at that. So that's kind of how I feel about, and but this is, it's just over years, this is where we are. I can tell you, just to that point, the Maintenance Aviation Readiness Review, it's a really cool meeting once a month we do, led by the FORCECOM DCG 3-star, who now is Lieutenant General Laura Richardson. Okay, remember her, aviator? So, and then the FORCECOM commander, General Abrams, he does it quarterly, so he sits it. So you got all the corps and division commanders up on the net. It's good training. We kind of used to do something like that at division maintenance meeting where we're accountable and we talk maintenance. And general officers have to actually understand, not the cab commanders. So that's all positive, I believe. And that's all helping us see ourselves a little bit better. Sorry, good question. What else?
Other questions?
Oh, it's much nicer.
You're all so shy, Doug.
No, you're all sleeping back here. See, the lights are down. I got you.
Uh-oh.
Please.
Back there, here we go.
Hello, John Ashauer, Interconnect Wiring. When you listed your priorities, you mentioned Korea was the first one. That surprised me. So what
You watching the news?
Pardon?
You watching the news?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
But I've never heard a country being the priority before in a list like that. I was just surprised. Could you talk a little bit more about it? What the Army is doing?
No. I mean, if I have to explain that, then, the threat is, the threat is what it is. See, there's, a near-peer competitor threats. How many are in the world are out there? I don't want to make this a history lesson, but near-peer threats, how many are there? Okay, that's a concern. Okay, Iraq and Afghanistan is interesting, and we're going to be there a long time, I believe. Who knows? That's just my personal opinion. But we're going to have to do a couple things at once. And a near-peer threat with what that government possesses is pretty scary. So we got to be ready. Our job as an Army, we prepare, right? That's what we do. Nations prepare, and that's what we're doing. We always prepare, but sometimes you get nudged a little bit, right? Based on what happens. So, okay, what else? Who's a Yankees fan?
That guy over there yelling.
Okay, okay, that's good. Now you're about to face some real pitching in Cleveland. So it's good. Yeah. Good pitching always beats good hitting. But it's just like forecasting. Good forecasting, that gets us to 275, not 500. And it helps us with supply availability. No, it's going to be a good series.
Anybody else? Going once. Here we go.
KJ, didn't you, we just, what?
I know you're talking about, sir, about being ready to fight tonight, but how ready do you think the Army is to sustain the fight? And how can we help with that?
Okay. You know, there's so many factors, warning, early warning, what do we got, what do we, you know, how long do we have to prepare? I think we're okay in some aspects, and we need a lot of work to do in others, and that's really I'm dodging your question a little bit. But how you can help, how we can help together as a team, which we just talked about, is when you look at our parts, essentially we've done just-in-time maintenance. We've done just-in-time parts for years. I got it. The contracts say that, and that's what it's whose fault is that? But we may need to take a look at that, because I think we need more of X on the shelf. You know, fill in the blanks. I can go through the line and balance. I can show you the line and balance that we track by every part. The top 10, 15, 25 cost drivers for the H-64, supply availability drivers. For example, we were at 84% last month, 84% supply availability. We dropped 3%. 87. They got to show it to me. But we know by percent what part cost us 0.56, 0.96. CH-47, Chinook, 7.75 for the interface. So we know by part how much we're losing on supply availability. So to answer your question, I think we got to be smarter the way we laid our contracts out. I think we got to be smarter on what we, the government, expect. We understand there's going to be a cost associated with that. But I believe, so I heard there was a question yesterday, so on the metrics, supply availability, sir, you'll never get to that. Well, that's true. Again, you got to have a goal. But I believe if we're at 87% today, let's just round it off at 85, I believe we can get to 95 by executing our processes correctly, more effectively, engage leadership, and applying a little pressure to each other and holding ourselves accountable across the table, specifically in contracting, as I've learned. So we're full steam ahead on that process. And then we're going to get to a point where, hey, I can't do anything more, and I need more money. I got that. But I'm not ready to ask my boss for $3 billion to get me up to 100%, because we have not executed due diligence and process people and leadership to get a little bit higher than where we're at. Does that make sense? That's just my personal feeling. I'm in command, so that's how I'm driving the train. One more question? Another Yankees fan?
Hold on.
Boston? Any Dodgers fans in here? I think you got to go through the Nationals first, right?
Good morning, sir. Edwin Maldonado,
Hey,
a.k.a. Maldo, Advanced Turbine Engine Company. Question for you. In developing soldier skill set, training, and going into the TRADOC element, what is there a plan to build a skill set and use this for our maintainers to get the proper knowledge that is required and needed to maintain and sustain the technology that's being put out to the warfighter, with the fact that Fort Eustis has a constraint in time to get that soldier out to the field to the warfighter commander. Want to get your aspect on, is there a plan, and are we looking at a time-phase deployment of how we plan, or how, I'm no longer in the Army, sorry about that, sir.
No, you're doing
how
good.
we plan to fill that gap or that gray area as our soldiers develop and become more smart in this technology.
So let me attack your question from one side that I know we're doing, and I think you'll be, I don't know, maybe you know about it, maybe you don't. Part of the HADF recommendations, those 63 recommendations, is, to your point, our crew chiefs, our soldiers, when we pass, after they graduate from they get out of 128, they're at Eustis, and they move out in the Army, we don't track them well. So for all the aviators in the room, we do this thing called readiness level progression, where if Gabram goes to X unit, we know that he is RL1. He's not a pilot in command. Here's his transcripts, if you will, everything. We know where he's at. Why don't we have the same thing for enlisted soldiers? We don't. We have job books. We took a stab at it a couple years ago. Well, Sergeant Major Chambers and Command Sergeant Major O'Donnell are driving that hard. So what we want to see is, and I'll go back to comparing it to an RL level progression. So our soldiers come out of 120, they graduate, and they actually have to take tests like aviators do. We have to take Dash 10 tests and different things. They take tests on proficiency, and so we know, and this will help our kids grow up to be technical inspectors, good, bad, and indifferent, and we can track them better. And that program is, matter of fact, Command Sergeant Major Chambers wrote an article about it in the last quad. I think it was July. So we feel good about that break. The technology piece, that's part of it. We're probably behind. And I don't want to, the 128th Commander, I mean, there's a lot of great things going on at Eustis, but we are probably behind in technology at the 128th. For a lot of good reasons, not their fault. POI is hard, there's bureaucratic. To change a POI, invading the country could be easier sometimes. So we're wrestling with that. But the TRADOC, and I don't want to go down the list, in the HADF recommendations, there's several of those recommendations that, Ed, to your question, address that. So we'll see how this crew chief, RO progression program, it's not called that, I forget it right now, goes. SL? Yeah. Skill level progression, calling it. So, okay, I think I've exceeded my expectations. So, any last shots? Anything at all? Really appreciate you being here. It means a lot to the CCAD team, and again, all about building relationships and getting better, because it's amazing what we find out on the breaks and in the hallways. So, anybody want to take last shot? Anybody at all? Okay, all right.